Good, how are you doing?
Everybody, we'll be getting started here in about 30 seconds. And as a disclaimer, Devin Schmidt, your staff liaison, is unable to attend tonight. She is tending to some audit items, so I will help kind of guide the start of the meeting, and you guys will be choosing a chair and vice chair, and then we'll go through the presentation of the content.
So I just resized. Unless that's another we were working on but I didn't. I lost. I put it at the end.
We're still missing a few members of the financial advisory board, but I think we'll go ahead and get started. Hi. We do have a quorum. We're going to get started. Welcome everybody. I'm Sarah Hill. I'm the transportation director. Everybody here? We're going to go ahead and get started tonight. I'm Sarah Hill. I'm the transportation Recreation Director, and like I mentioned, I'll be sitting in tonight for Devin Schmidt, who is your staff liaison, unable to attend tonight. So we'll go ahead and just follow the order. We will do a roll call of the Financial Advisory Board members. And Marissa, do you have the list of the members there?
I have a small list.
Small, that should probably be it, if you don't mind going through the list.
Okay, so for roll call, I have John Ballou,
Here.
Thomas Barney, Doug Lyon, Emma Miller, Anthony Savastano,
I'm here.
Jasper Welch,
Here.
Jessica Wheeler.
Here.
Thank you. Roger Salamarine. Thank you. I apologize. And for staff, I have Allison Baker.
Here.
Sarah Hill. And Turi.
Terry Snyder, I'm Scott McLean, this is Parks Rec.
And then also for staff today, we have Devin King, he's the multimodal manager, and he'll be presenting on the multimodal strategy project. For the Parks and Rec Advisory Board members, if you will please introduce yourselves.
Seth Furley, Parks and Rec Advisory Board.
Richard Spiegel, Park and Rec Advisory Board.
Adam Howell, Board Member, Parks and Recreation Advisory Board.
Anthony Savastano, Vice Chair, Parks and Rec Advisory Board.
Megan Scully, Parks and Rec Advisory Board. That's all.
Oh, there's
Anyone from the IAB present?
John Blue.
From the Multimodal Advisory Board? Sarah, you can feel free to join the table if you'd like. Okay.
It looks like we've been joined by Tom Barney, who's
Welcome,
on
Tom.
financial.
Hi, everybody. Great to see you all. Just straight from the airport. I apologize for being late.
I'm Martha Mason from the Multimodal Advisory Board.
And then from Natural Lands.
Betsy Hart.
Michael Watchman, Vice Chair, Natural Lands.
Well, welcome everybody. Our first item of business today is to set the chair and vice chair and set a standing meeting date. And our city attorney, Mark Morgan, is going to kind of walk through the process of selecting chair and vice chair.
Sure. So this is for the FAB board. You guys put your hands up just so I can see you.
FAB.
Oh,
So
Sorry.
the easiest way to do this is to have a nomination for a combination of chair and vice chair. You can also have the option of doing them one at a time. So what you should do is open up the floor to nominations, and again, your choices are you can nominate a chair and vice chair at the same time, and we'll keep the floor open until the nominations are approved. If there are no nominations for chair and vice chair, I would suggest that you do them one at a time, with the chair first and the vice chair second. So this time, I'll go ahead and ask, are there any nominations for a chair and vice chair combination?
It's a mad rush.
so who nominates the FAB? Or who nominates the chairperson for this meeting? Just anybody here?
Only the FAB members.
Oh, only the FAB. Okay.
So if you raise your hand, this is your opportunity to nominate somebody. Yes, ma'am.
I'll nominate Anthony Savastano as chair and Jasper's vice chair. Jasper Welch is vice chair.
Can you nominate yourself?
Yes. All right, so if I'm tracking things correctly, we have a single nomination for a combination of chair and vice chair. I didn't memorize the names, but I'm sure they're in the minutes.
Anthony Jasper.
Are there any other nominations for chair and vice chair? So seeing that there aren't any other nominations, I would officially close the nominations on the minutes. And seeing as there is only one nominated ticket, you can take an acclamation vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Congratulations.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jess.
Looks like the train left the station.
So Anthony, if you're ready to take over as the chair.
I figured that was coming.
Our next item is to set a standing meeting
Yeah, so first off, thank you for the vote of confidence or the vote of convenience, whichever you want to call it. Appreciate it and look forward to working with each and every one of you. As far as meeting date and time, I don't know what sort of flexibility we have. It sounds like maybe we have generally an open floor to talk about wherever. So I'd be curious if there's any board members that, FAB board members that have any ideas as to what would be convenient and appropriate. I think that it would be interesting and important for us to take into consideration meeting times for public input, particularly because this is going to be a consolidated board that oversees all sorts of expenditures. I know that as serving on the chair for the Parks and Rec Advisory Board, we regularly received public input. I can provide my personal opinion as to the effectiveness of having a very set schedule on that, but also being responsive to the wills and the needs of the community members. I think that there is definitely an underrepresentation that we saw in a lot of different ways by having our meetings at a 5 o'clock time period. So I'd ask you guys to kind of think about that in moving forward. The reason I say that is because there's a ton of families, parents that cannot make those times. And typically when you're having public input at the start of a meeting, you run into a lot of scheduling issues, people picking up kids from school, shuttling them to extracurricular activities. And so we did miss that voice more often than not. I'd say in particular instances where there was, let's say, crucial or very important projects that were going on during discussion or on our board, we did see a better turnout. However, there was people that would come to us and voice their opinion about, hey, I had to find a sitter or find somebody to watch my kids, or we'd have kids in the room. So that's my personal opinion. I think other than that, up for discussion as to what's convenient to everybody else. Tom?
Thanks, good thoughts, Anthony. I'll suggest that we meet either Tuesdays or Thursdays. And I say that because I think Wednesdays there are conflicts, a lot of people taking Wednesday off, Friday no, Monday right after the weekend, so Tuesday to Thursday. And I'd have the FAB consider like a 3:30 or 4 o'clock start if they're willing to dig into their business day in return for some family time. Tuesday or Thursday at 3:30 or 4 is a consideration.
I think that's well considered. Any comments on that or any additional considerations or advocacy?
I've got airport commission on Thursdays once a month, so that would be potential conflicts there. Family time, appreciate it very much, but it is easier for work schedule to have them in the evenings. And Anthony, I'm curious, if you think about better representation during the day versus later in the evening.
Yeah, I mean, I also have a full-time job, so I fully I'm behind the idea of having something maybe a little bit later, but I think maybe a little bit of a buffer, whether that's 5:30 or 5:45 as a start time, as opposed to right when things are kind of getting settled, or a middle of the day. I've mulled this kind of over in my brain about how can we get better and more effective public input throughout it, and it's just a tough nut to crack at the end of the day.
I still think we're gonna get more people showing up at 4, digging an hour out of their business day than digging 2 hours out of their dinner day. So I just thinking over the course of the year, we'll get better attendance and participation, even 4:30, but 3:30 or 4 seems better to me.
Can I know I'm not on the board, but am I allowed to say something?
I think we could entertain some input for sure.
I just want to say that there are a lot of people who actually can't leave their jobs.
Yeah,
So,
that's very true.
so having your meeting at 4 really excludes people who are not in a nice enough job to be able to leave.
Mhm.
Tuesdays and Thursdays.
That's true.
I lean more towards 5 or 5:30 or something like that.
Yeah.
And the first and third Tuesday of the month are council meetings.
That's a very good point. And then since we have conflict on Thursday, are there any other boards and commissions or any other FAB members who serve on any other boards and commissions that meet on any other days? Or is Robert the only one serving on an additional board. Do we know that? I think I,
Wednesdays would work for me. If Tuesdays can't be done because of council meetings, and Thursdays can't be done because of airport commission,
Are we only meeting monthly? Could it just be the opposite of your one Thursday for the airport commission?
That's a good question.
Like another Thursday?
yeah,
The second or third of the month?
Yeah, what's the cadence for the meetings? That's a great question.
that is a good question. I didn't even consider it. I just assumed once a month.
They will be monthly, yes.
If that's the case, we could just choose a different Thursday than the airport commission.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I do have to have 5:30.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, maybe something like 5:30, and if it wasn't Thursday or Wednesday, my only conflict on a Thursday is I have a meeting on the fourth Thursday, but any other Thursday we're trying to remember when the airport commission is.
It's tomorrow.
It's tomorrow, so the
That's
second,
That's the second.
second Tuesday.
No, it's the third Thursday.
It's the third Thursday.
Oh, because of the way
It's the first, yeah, it says 15th, that was the first, 8th, and 15th, so it'd be third. So we could do first or second,
So,
because you've got third and fourth covered,
Yeah.
right?
any preference, any other comment from any other family members?
I like a 5:30 start. I think that the other board member, Ellen, had said that she could only make it after 5:15.
Yeah. And I did have a little mouse in my ear, Megan Scully from Parks and Rec did make a good point that I think needs to be expressed in that a little bit later of a time period would maybe be more inviting to certain individuals applying for future positions within this board, people that are working or have full-time jobs, that may be something that's more amenable to their schedule. So I'd advocate for a 5:30 start on the second Tuesday of every month.
So moved.
Do we have a second? Any further discussion? I'll call that to a vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes. The regular meeting of the Financial Advisory Board, will be the second Tuesday of every month at 5:30. Thursday, did I say? Sorry. All right, moving on to the next agenda item. We need to approve the minutes from the June 7th meeting, which I believe was just the orientation last week. I was not present. As anybody that was present had the chance to review those minutes and would like to motion to approve those minutes.
I'll move.
Thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion on that? Move that to a vote. All those in favor, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion passes.
Tony, can we let the record indicate that Emma Millar and Doug Lyon are joining me?
Yes. Let the record reflect that Emma Millar and Doug Lyon are both in attendance. Thank you. Moving on to reports. Looks like we have a discussion of several CIP processes in 2024 proposed CIP plan. I imagine that there's going to be a presentation on that.
There will be, yes. And if we can go a few slides forward, we're gonna step through each special dedicated revenue fund individually, separately. So you'll see the 2005 first. We're going into 2015 project, 2019, and water and sewer, comment on that. And staff is going to go through each of the proposed CIP projects on a really high level. If you have any questions, we're of course very happy to answer those, but we are going to try to keep the majority of the discussion to the financial piece of it. But if you have any questions about the rankings, I think this is the opportunity to have that conversation with the other advisory board members with us. So please feel free to have that conversation. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Scott McLean, who will be handling the 2005 project.
So 2005 is the Parks Open Space Trails projects, quarter cent sales tax, if you could go to the next slide for me. And then also go on to the next one. So the schedule you have here is what we have, so approved for 2023 and then proposed for the next 5 years. There should be some copies of these. If you don't have one, you raise your hand and we'll get a copy around to you. And then if you want to go on to the next one, I'll kind of just go through slide by slide on each specific project. So.
Can you go back? We're down in 2019 now. We need to go up to the top.
So this is your CIP plan for 2015 funds. That's on
2005 is what we should be looking at. It should be,
There you go, there you go.
This was the first slide you were on. Is this
No,
correct?
yes. Should be like slide 6.
It's a proposed plan, so
Yeah, I see slide 5, it's a project slide. After this, yeah.
So then we have a photo. And we're back to the 2015.
You don't have the same presentation that we have, I think.
Okay, this was the one that Devin said.
Okay.
Do we need to try to get a different one?
Yeah, if you can start describing the projects you have, I can send the file to.
So if I'll just walk through the schedules we have in front of us. So the first number under expenditures, we have the natural lands preservation open space acquisition with a proposal for $400,000 for 2024. What we've typically been doing there is putting a set amount each year into the fund, and that way, as the property becomes available, we have a fund balance that we can use for that property without disclosing to the public what we're saving money for, what property we're looking at until that's all handled as far as the real estate transaction.
Scott, can you remind us why in 2023 we did $1.1 million and then 400 as a plug figure for the other years? What did we do?
The 1.1 million in 23 is what it rolled over to that point that has been.
Well, that's the cumulative.
The cumulative amount that's been having out to the point, yes.
Free and available to spend on.
And then with the open space, so these top couple ones are ones that we have a set amount that we try to do each year. The next one is the open space maintenance fire mitigation. And that is typically $50,000. Again, we had some money that was reappropriated for 23. So we've got a higher amount there. But that is money that generally goes to open space maintenance, whether that's trail signage, that is fire mitigation, it covers some of the grant, our responsibility of that. And then the next one is park, trail, and rec improvements. Again, we've done typically $200,000 a year for that. And that covers playground replacements, some expenses in parks that are a little bit more than just our general maintenance. So if we've got a playground that's due for replacement, it helps cover the cost for replacing that piece of equipment. The Durango trails, we've done $40,000 a year, and that's for our partnership and the work that they do with us for trail maintenance. We work with them every year, putting together a trail plan and what needs to be accomplished, and that's what the $40,000 covers. We're making any progress there.
Take the next slide down.
Okay, so that's the slide one that went through. Yeah, if you want to just advance to the next one, that would be great. So the first one we had there is the Smart 160 Trail. We've had money appropriated for that project. We've got design done, kind of coming in both directions. There's a piece of property in the middle that is private property. The property owner is willing to work with us. What we found is we got into the very specific of exactly where that trail easement needs to be. He is trying to figure out what other development may happen on his land in the future, and we're kind of waiting on him to get, pushing him, working with him to get to a point where we can see where the trail easement will fall. But he doesn't want to set the trail easement and then be kind of railroaded into where he can develop that property. So still trying to work with him on that. Open space, go push up here now. So yeah, you can go to the next slide, go to Smart 160. We've are working this year on a design for park restrooms. Could be a stamp that we can use, so we've got a design, and we'll work at Schneider Park, looking at possibly incorporating that with pickleball courts we're putting in hopefully this year, and then possibly at Buckley Park, depending on what happens with the city center there. So next slide. $2 million proposed for replacing irrigation at the cemetery. We currently have a design consultant on board that's going to help us redesign that. The system that's up there is decades old. It's all manually operated, which means during the daytime it requires staff time to change heads. So this would get us a system that is more water efficient, more staff efficient, and just replaces the older system we have. And the next slide. These are the river access points. We've got 33rd Street proposed in 25 and 26. We did designs for 4 different river access points when we did Oxbow, to try to kind of divide up what each one provided, but what we have in budget at this point would be 33rd Street, just north of 32nd on 3rd. And next slide. Mason Center Park, if you recall, a couple of years ago, the school was torn down, the park area renovated where the school was. The gymnasium still stands in place there. It is an older building as well. We need storage space there, is what we've been using it for, but this money provides $200,000 for community engagement and design, looking at some opportunities of where else we may be able to have storage, what else we can use that space for, both building space, if that's what we end up there in the park, and then an estimated $1.5 million for construction. Next slide.
Try this and see if this works for us.
Perfect, thank you. I'm gonna jump to the next one if you could. And then Three Springs Community Park. This would be the northeast side of Three Springs, a small park that would include 8 pickleball courts, dog park area, and then also some trailhead access parking. So $3.8 million is the estimate for this project. And then with this, I'll turn it over to Devin for the multimodal projects. I think we'll do those first, and then we can jump into it for the fire projects in 2015.
So if you guys, some questions,
Please.
Hey, what did the MPC
Well,
say?
I guess it will apply to the 2015 eventually, but the taxes, I assume it looks like it goes up 3% per year. Okay. Why is there no real projection, except for 2025, there's no projections for anticipated grant funding?
That,
Except for 2025.
yeah, we'll look at grant opportunities. It's just once we get beyond that, we're kind of guessing. So I think just where we're at with the numbers now, we're looking at the next couple of years.
What do you assume about inflation?
I'm sorry,
What do you assume about inflation?
what do we see with it? Like,
No, what do you assume about inflation?
Oh,
if you're doing
typically
this?
you're adding 5% to construction projects per year.
So that would play in then too, in the standing projects you've got for open space acquisition, fire mitigation. If we hold that flat, we're getting less share of each, right? So it's about 5%.
Yeah.
And then just getting as I look at the ending fund balance, and there's at least 3 projects here that haven't been allocated. We don't have the fund balance at this point, is my takeaway to manage those 3 projects.
And this fund actually expires in sunsets in 2026. So some of this is on the assumption we're looking at that the fund is continues.
Under the 2023 approved, a few items are highlighted. Is there meaning to that highlight?
I'm sorry, it came off a worksheet that I just printed off of and then realized once I got here that all of our working highlights are in it, so no, it's just pretty color at this point.
I have a question. What, generally speaking, have sales tax revenues increased at in percentage terms in the last few years?
So you know, that we have, Devin is our financial person and she wasn't able to attend tonight. We typically budget with about a 4% escalator generally in revenues.
Okay. I would think it'd be larger than that, at least recently.
Last 4 years.
We have this week more revenue than we budgeted for. We kind of tend to budget on the conservative side for.
Sarah,
Yeah.
Elliot with the budget is gonna get that exact number for us.
Okay, great. Thanks, Elliot.
And then one other question, maybe when we get further down the line on specific projects, particularly if something is 4 million or 2 million or whatever million, at least I would think those are big numbers, and there is some grant funding or other funding sources, you know, this is just the sales tax portion, correct?
This, we plug in our total project cost. And then you'll see, at the top with the revenues, we have the taxes that will be generated, and then we'll have a line item for grant funding for
Yeah,
each
but
fund
it's,
as
but
well.
it's below.
This will be the total cost, yes.
But it may be something on a larger project that maybe if we're considering that particular one, that we break that out. And then if there's a fund balance carry forward, I think that's a little bit what Roger was getting at, is like that number that says approved, is that carrying forward a fund balance that was a carryover, or is that actually appropriated for that year from new monies? It'd just be a little more granular detail. If it's a bigger project, I mean, if it's a smaller project that you're just putting 40,000 a year in, that doesn't really need additional discussion. But if you're looking at the Smart 160 Trail, obviously we've been saving a lot of money in negotiating for that. That may just merit a little more detail when we're reviewing it. You know, it's not that there's anything wrong with the numbers, it's a big enough number that, you know, if I look at irrigation for the cemetery, which is probably a necessary project, you know, $2 million is a pretty big project, so it just needs some heavy detail.
And obviously, these larger construction numbers will be more refined as we get closer to actual construction date. Most of our design phases will include cost estimate that will let us know as we get closer to actually allocating the funding in the budget year, what that total will be. So, you know, you'll see the Smart 160 is very specific, 4.2, 2.3, 2.67, and then otherwise we're plugging in some fairly general estimates for what construction costs.
Thank you.
So just really high level, what does combined, the 2005 and the 2015 money add up to every year, say in 2022, for instance? And there's got to be some percentage that's grabbed by the city council for maintenance on some of the stuff that's been built over the years with that money. And so, you know, there's going to be some amount of that is used for cutting grass in some park that was built in 2010. So how much is available and how much is being pulled off to be used for maintenance of properties?
So the maintenance part of it, we can get it a little bit in the 2015 is where we're pulling that from, so I can pull it up and get there. And then Elliot, I don't know if maybe you could pull kind of where we're at for the last year or two on
2022.
the 2005 and 15, how much money we brought in for projects.
How much we're putting into those projects.
And also to that point, there aren't policies in place for how much maintenance is transferred out of each of the special revenue funds. So we kind of typically as staff make recommendations each year based on, you know, the needs are, but that was really our discussion.
Yeah, and I'm going based off of memory, but I think that the general amount that we were seeing from 2015 and 2005 was around 10 million, 11 million. And then we were seeing some contributions from the general fund as well, to the tune of a couple $1 million. I can't remember the specific amount that was coming out of the general fund. Those would be contributed to things like maintenance or other things that were necessary.
Thank you.
So one of the questions are there any fund balance policies that apply to these special sales taxes?
They're not.
Okay. Hi everybody, my name is Devin King. I'm the multimodal manager, and now we can go through the multimodal CIP projects that come out of the 2015 tax net sales and use tax, so if you don't mind. Going, no, that's 2019. Are we moving?
And just kind of as a reminder, the 2015 in the ballot language, that funds both parks and recreation projects and bicycle and pedestrian maintenance projects. So this is a tax with overlapping boards that we've had in the past. Parks and Rec is overseeing 2015, as well as the Multimodal Advisory Board is overseeing some of the 2015 projects. So you'll see both of us presenting on the 2015 tax. And then, like I mentioned last week with our projects, multimodal projects are broken into phases that are standalone. So there's the design phase and the construction phase, and those each count as two separate projects. So you'll see like design of Camino Crossing, that's a separate project from construction of Camino Crossing. Just back there.
And can you help guide me on where your slides might be?
It's on the same PowerPoint, it should be.
Yeah. So we have just wrapped up with,
Should start with like downtown's next step, I think.
so this one here. Okay. Sorry, for some reason it seems like the computer's skipping some
Oh,
of this.
it's not showing behind you either, Evan, I'm sorry.
Oh, it looks like some of these have been crossed out actually.
Those are extra slides at the bottom.
So that's downtown, so that's the slide you're looking for, correct?
There's nothing fancy in it.
That's, oh, that's what you meant, sorry. It's also showing,
Yes.
it's showing as if it's trying to skip it in the presentation. That's why it's not showing up there.
Got it.
Yeah, they're crossed out on my
Okay.
side, sorry. Let me see if I can present it now, see if it will jump to the next slide. Looks like it's still speaking. Okay. Let me just jump to it, I'll work with it in small for now. And I'll see if I can.
Yeah, that's fine, I know pretty much always by heart. Yeah, so downtown's next step, as Sarah mentioned, you know, we do phases of projects with design and then construction, but downtown's next step will actually be split up into three phases is right now what we're proposing. And so as that slide shows, phase one is what we're currently under, and that is design of basically essentially 2 blocks, as well as, you know, the inventory and analysis of the full corridor. But phase two that we are proposing would be further design of the downtown Main Avenue corridor. We don't have a defined. This is kind of one of the issues with multimodal projects versus parks and recreation projects. Our projects usually involve the public and involve, you know, rights of way and other details that we can't really get all fleshed out until we get into the project. So there's a lot of variables that change and move and look a little bit differently. So that's kind of why we do the design first and then the construction portion, because there's a lot of unknowns until we get done with the design. You can go ahead and go to the next slide. West Park Avenue traffic calming design, you know, some of you may be familiar, we've done a pilot project out there, but this project is on there because it is high on the list for the 2019 and streets, getting that done. It's in need of being repaved. So that project is high on the list. For traffic calming, we've had a lot of citizen and neighborhood concerns come up, and then, you know, as I mentioned, we have implemented the pilot project to kind of test out some ideas in the meantime, but that is that design project for $350. So this is construction of phase one. So again, that would be 2 blocks, and that's what we're finishing up right now for downtown's next step, which is again Main Avenue, pedestrian improvements, as well as traffic calming features that will improve the corridor for bicyclists. And so that again would just be the construction of 2 blocks. And you know, ideally, downtown's next step with obviously the huge impact on our downtown economy. Doing the construction and phasing is I think, the ideal approach. And that absolutely came out through the conceptual design outreach that we did. A lot of the businesses and even some of the public, were like, in support of doing it in a phased approach. Next slide. Junction Street traffic calming is Junction Street from West 3rd Avenue all the way to Dalla, and where it turns into County Road 204. And what that is we have bike lanes out there and we have some sidewalk, but there are missing sidewalk sections. And then we've had, again, neighborhood resident complaints on speeding. And so traffic calming to try to accommodate both, reduce speeds and then also improve pedestrian and bicycle connectivity to Dalla, as well as you have Miller Middle School, and then even Liberty School farther out, so improving that corridor. And then also that one is, a higher priority due to streets, again, needing to repave that project and work on that. So that project has a higher priority, again, kind of trying to work with the streets division and what they're looking at. Gable Gulch connection. So right now, the Gable Gulch side trail empties out before you get to college, and there's no connecting sidewalk. It's difficult for bicyclists to interact with that side path. So basically making that connection full all the way to college in 8th intersection to kind of fill that gap that is currently existing. And that is just design. Highway 160 West bicycle and pedestrian safety improvement. I think, most of us know this corridor well, so this is from, Highway 160, 550 intersection all the way back towards Wildcat Canyon. And this is, Parks and Rec calls out for a basically trail alignment on adjacent to that. And, basically looking at that, there are pedestrian and bicycle safety improvements, especially with the affordable housing going in at the Best Western, and the needs out there with some of the other community. And so what that is taking a look at how can we improve the pedestrian and bicycle safety and access along that corridor, and that is design. West Park Avenue traffic calming construction. Again, that is the implementation of what's to come from the design for the traffic calming treatments on West Park Avenue. 32nd Street traffic calming construction. For those of you that don't know, we just finished a 30-second design for traffic calming. Have a lot of great support on that project. Basically what it's doing is looking at putting in medians, a new roundabout, and some other connectivity for pedestrians, and then buffer bike lanes. And so that would be construction of the design that we are pretty close to full completion on. Midtown Safety Improvement construction, we're under design right now on that project. It is in conceptual level. We will actually be at the City Council study session next week discussing that project if you're curious and want to know more. But it would be implementation and construction of that design that we're hoping to finish early 2024. Community crossing phase construction. This is the underpass that is under design near 12th Street under Camino del Rio, and again, that is for bikes and pedestrians. So this would be basically to replace the Hawk beacon that everybody's familiar with right there, creating a safe connection to the Angus River Trail and then into downtown. That design has been going on for a little while, and we've gone through, we had the boards and commissions last year do a design charrette. And then with the conversation with the Fire Protection District, we've kind of slowed down the design, and we're waiting to work with the Fire Protection District to make sure that everything functioned and fit the needs and worked well on the site. So that's where we are with that project. We still hope to get that design done in 2024. ADA transition plan. Sarah, is this one the?
This is just ongoing information.
Okay. So There was a ADA transition plan which took a look at all of our transit stops around the city of Durango and evaluated them for ADA compliance and areas of improvement. So there is, I forget, $10 million, I think, proposed of improvements, and some $20 million worth of improvements in there. So what this is proposing is doing basically a few every year, under design for 100,000, and then we're saying $1 million for construction of those improvements every other year to kind of go through that ADA transition plan that's from 2016 and start to make some progress on that.
And then for the Parks and Recreation projects out of the 2015, the recreation facilities, some maintenance, we've got a section on the recreation center that needs to have the roof replaced. We're also looking at solar on top of the rec center as part of the energy performance contracts. The section of roof needs to be replaced before the solar goes on. Gymnastics facility in Bodo is in need of a new roof, and then some money in there as well for replacing equipment at the rec center. We've kind of got a rotating program there. We're trying to update, a number of them every year to keep up to date with the workout facility there. The forestry management plan, we are in process of hiring a consultant to update our community forest plan, and that will be updating our inventory and also coming up with ways to increase our tree canopy, get additional trees in our community. That should be probably close to a year process. So the funds, we've got 23 to help pay for that consulting, as well as additional trees that we've been planning with staff. And then number for 24 and ongoing would be implementation of that plan, looking at places that don't have as many trees as other parts of town, and then increasing the tree canopies within the city.
Hey Scott, do we have, are there ever thoughts on what to do about maybe trees that are inappropriate for a given neighborhood, or noxious trees like Siberian elms or big spruces that fall over and smash cars, or stuff like that?
Yes, part of the management plan that's addressed invasive materials. It addresses kind of a pest management plan, so the old ASPOR has a plan in place for updating that. Spruce trees, I think downtown, we're kind of handling those, but also identifying more appropriate species that belong in the neighborhood. So I think we jump back to, okay. Chapman Ski Hill, we got proposals or requested proposals this year to replace the little toe rope. Both the little toe and the big toe are dated, and we feel like we're kind of just on borrowed time with both of those lifts. The proposals we got back for the little toe were not exactly what we wanted, and it was 2 years out before we could get materials. We put that back out to bid again, getting numbers for both. So what we're looking at doing is trying to replace little toe, big toe, and the lights all at one time. This will be a lot more efficient as far as doing construction one time, getting everything in place. So the number we have in there is for that work. Lake Night Horse, we received a FLAP, or Federal Lands Access Program grant, which is federal highways providing grant funds for access to federal lands. Lake Night Horse is BOR, since the city manages recreation there. So the grant is for almost $4 million, with the city pitching in 1.25. That is currently in design, scheduled for 25, 26 for construction. The Animas River Trail, we have essentially 3 remaining sections that are asphalt, older construction. Some of those don't have lights. So we've got Goff Engineering is on board right now, designing all 3 of those for us. One of them we're planning to try to start construction on this year. That would be Santa Rita Park North to Doubletree. The other 2 projects that are in design would be Santa Rita Park South to County Road 210 at the intersection where Nature's Oasis is. And the third would be from behind the high school across Demon Bridge up to 29th Street. The 2 sections south of Santa Rita Park and 29th Street both include replacing the existing bridges that are there. This is what I was just saying, this is the bridge south of Santa Rita Park, replacing bridge and trail. For the next slide.
We want to pause there for questions on the 2015 projects.
Yeah, can I just ask a quick math question? Is right now you have the recreation project split out, there's no subtotal. You have multimodal, and there's no subtotal. It looks like total revenue's in 8.9, you're spending 16, so reduces the fund balance, but it doesn't have a breakout between those two. I'm just wondering what that number is, or.
We can get a breakout for you if you'd like to see it that way. Typically, we've just presented it as the full fund balance, but we're happy to provide it that way.
Yeah, because it just seems that, I think that, and Anthony is our leader, can help us on this, is that we have boards coming here that did project assessment, and we have boards coming here that did finance assessment. So you do have a couple of numbers people on your board, for better or for worse. And so we might be asking some number questions like that. And that would just help on some of the bigger, the bigger numbers, to see what that split is. And obviously you're spending down your fund balance, which is appropriate. I was just trying to figure out if the split between those two is how much flexibility we have in the language. I'm just trying to figure that out.
We really, and the ballot language doesn't call out a percentage split or, how it's shared. What we've typically done as staff is prioritize based on project readiness, grant availability. There's a number of different criteria that we've worked with, and that's been the process that the Parks and Rec and Multimodal Advisory Boards have hashed out each year during the CIP process.
Okay.
But yeah, it's very easy for us to provide those numbers to you in that way.
Yeah. And I think, we want to honor some of that history, but I'm just trying to figure out what it is, so we know what the precedent is or was or could be. So.
Along those lines, I'll make an observation. I mean, those are, if you take the aggregate projects here, it's big money.
Yeah.
I mean, particularly a lot of those multimodal projects. And a lot of them, I haven't examined it in detail yet, but a lot of the projects that are Parks and Rec or multimodal, they're in design phase, and we're paying for consultants in design and stuff like that. But what would be the aggregate total of money of all the projects we have in design phase, which it suggests some level of commitment? That's, how many years of $11 million a year is that? That's a lot of years of $11 million a year.
And to kind of piggyback, I think, Jesper, on your point, in terms of the information that is necessary for us to review and make educated and poignant analysis and then recommendations to City Council, I think that's all malleable. I think we need to provide feedback to staff. It's certainly something that happened during the Parks and Rec Advisory Board. I served on that board. We examined what numbers were helpful to us, and I would also state that these numbers are generally coming at the end of a very long process. So they're representative of a collative amount of information that we've gone through and examined. I think Sarah made a good point about grant funding, and that sometimes that escalates projects because those grants are awarded or only available for a certain amount of time. And so there's a good amount of projects where we get a GOCO grant or something of the similar, and we have to spend that money within 3 years. And so it accelerates a certain timeline for that specific project, or kind of puts the pressure on us to either approve it or abandon the project. It's an interesting process, and grants kind of complicate things. I can see why they aren't outlined beyond a certain set number of years, 2025, 2026, 2027, and so on, because it's a roll of the dice. There's only so many funds that are going to be available at the state, federal level. I do know that staff has been very adept, in my experience, at going out and grabbing those monies that are available, but breaking it out, I think, as you've suggested, where you're showing money that's being contributed from the projects or from the half-cent or the quarter-cent taxes, in addition to what's being contributed by the general fund, is something that we generally analyze prior to getting to these numbers, and we're looking at that. And so I certainly would would agree with that process and including that in the data that we're examining.
Quick question. Under multimodal potential funding, starting in 2025, what is that potential source?
There's multiple sources, and we kind of, when we're looking at 3 years out, we're plugging in what we are going to be applying for, projects or programs that we have identified. So we've split it out there to show essentially a balanced budget, that this is our anticipated grant revenue coming in.
Okay, so it's grants.
Yeah, and we'll never have anything, we'll never have a potential grant line item there within 2 years. So as you can see it here, we've got 24, 23 and 24. So those are real dollars, those have been awarded, those are allocated. And each year we'll go through this 5-year CIP process and refine that grant amount that's there. So, but these are identified projects that do exist that we are planning to apply for specific projects.
I have a question about the Camino crossing. Is there any protection, like an easement or something, considering that the fire department is going to be designing probably an entirely new facility there? And I know quite a bit of money was spent in the design, the preliminary designs for options at Camino. Is there any certainty that the fire department is going to have those plans fit into what they plan to do?
Well, luckily with the Camino crossing design, we're in such a preliminary phase that we can be really flexible with how things are progressing with the fire department. And at this point, this is all currently moving pieces, and I can say that the fire department, is working with us very closely, and they are coordinating with us on that site plan, which is, we don't have the site plan. But the good news is that the design for the underpass is flexible at this point to be able to continue working and coordinating with them.
Great, thanks.
Question?
Tom?
Anthony, my guess is a matter of process is that we're getting familiar with some of these projects and these numbers right now for the first time. In some cases, like we don't know the multimodal numbers that well. You and I know the Parks and Rec numbers very well. So I would think we would go through them, get a general feel for dollar amounts of projects, and then in future meetings, I think we should probably go through line by line and talk about each project, its value. Is the design phase done or not? Has money been spent or not? Is money been committed from outside sources or not? And understand really where they are in the mix if we are going to compare these in their relative value and their relative cost. So that's my guess for tonight, that we're getting acquainted with projects and numbers, and we'll get to that level of detail for numbers guys and gals, and for us to make good decision making. Recommendations.
Yeah, I think that's well noted. A lot of this is first blush to a lot of us, and so examining this, getting familiar with it so we can hit the ground running, I think is kind of the idea here. We're looking at a transition plan and how do we get into the historical knowledge that's available to us, as well as some of the data that's been presented to the prior advisory boards. I think that's kind of the.
We might even think of a study session or a separate work session out of sync to really dig in and grind through these top to bottom. It'll be nauseating. We'll all get to the same place with lots of notes. Gonna be nauseating?
If I could too, just as a reminder, and Anthony kind of brought this up, this year is a hybrid approach. We are in the middle of the transition, so there has been a significant amount of time committed from the advisory boards to prioritize and rank these projects that you see before you. And over the course of this coming year, you all will be a part of those conversations and update of the projects, and you'll have a lot more of that information before you. But, I appreciate your flexibility, and please bear with us as we kind of make this transition. And just know that there is so much historic time and thought that's gone into the ranking that you see before you now.
Yeah, and I think, Tom, you hit the nail on the head and was reading my mind regarding a study session or some sort of work session between our board, getting back into the details, the finer details of all of these. I would say, I wouldn't call them round numbers, obviously they're reflective of what's actually going on here, but these numbers are a result of a whole lot of discussion and a whole lot of work, and we need to be educated on that, particularly as we move forward and gain the confidence of the public.
Couple of questions. Why does the tax fall from 5.9 to 5.5 from 2023 to 2024? Tax fees.
Elliot, are you prepared to speak about the tax projection where we go from, in the 2015, 5.95 to 5.5 in 2024?
Yeah.
We don't need to put you on the spot, we can circle back to if you need to.
So you were looking at the difference between the 5.5 and 5.9.
Yes,
That
so we
decline, the
budgeted,
decline of 400 grand.
we budgeted for the 5.9 in tax revenue in 2023, and then it goes down in 2024.
Yes, we did that because we tend to forecast a little bit conservatively in doing our forecasts. A lot of the sales tax revenue did have spikes through COVID. So when we do our forecasts, sometimes those revenue projections do come down a little bit from the most immediate historic years. But we are looking at, in most cases, 3-year rolling average, or in the case when we do have those spikes, we look at a longer set of data, further back set of data to get a more realistic trend for those forecasts. So prior to, I think, 2021, there was a lot more, it was a lot more consistent. And in 2020, 2021, depending on the fund, had some large spikes. So we were trying to mitigate our forecast for the large spikes coming back down and kind of regressing to the mean. So that's why we were forecasting a little bit lower next year.
I understand that, but it's not reflected in the quarter cent. 2005 post tax. I gotta imagine that the sales tax is collected on the sale. You see one sales tax go up and the other go down.
It's also growing 25, 6, 7, and 8 too, so.
Well, I know, it gets reset.
It gets set to a new low.
To do low, but the other tax doesn't, the quarter cent doesn't.
Right.
If I'm buying, I'm not gonna see one tax change go to another, so they're not consistent, then if that was the methodology. I think that's gonna be addressed, because again, I go back to these fund balances, and if there needs to be a write-down on the 2024 quarter cent, these fund balances are going negative, because they're nothing right now. So that's just.
In the future years.
Let's make sure the sales taxes line up consistent with our projections and everything. Secondly, if there is anything that's gonna be funded by grants, say like Horse Flat, can those be called out specifically as we look through these projects? Because I think it's really important, and for us novices, we don't know that. And so if we start trying to prioritize projects and we're taking something and saying we shouldn't do that, but 80% of the money is coming from grants, that's probably not a good idea.
That's what I was referring to prior, because there's design fees that have been either spent or committed. There's some that are partially completed, and future dollars, you sort of have to know the stream over multiple years on certain projects. That's the level we have to get to.
And I guess the final thing is, I do think we should try to, going forward, is get our hands around what kind of projections we can make on grant funding in general. Because that does, again, that influences the capacity we have to investigate capital projects, whether it's based off historical rules or something else. That is money that will either to some degree in the future, even if we're not seeing it on the sheets.
Any other questions? Comments? All right.
We do have, Elliot did provide the average increase for the 05 and 15. So the 05 average percent increase in 2019 is 7.15. And the average percent increase for 15 is 6.54.
Thank you.
Thanks, Elliot.
Thanks, Elliot. All right, any further from staff on these reports? Okay, we will move on to new business. I think there's already been a mention of this in respect to setting up a study session for the Financial Advisory Board to get a little bit into the weeds on some of these numbers. I think that's a fine idea, and certainly would ask that to be included in the form of a circulated calendar to the Financial Advisory Board members, to try and set that up ASAP, maybe before our next meeting. And I don't necessarily think we need a vote on that, but if I can get nodding consensus on that. Okay. We'll move forward with that. Any other topics that the Financial Advisory Board would like to speak about moving forward on our next agenda?
Yeah, I think I have one question. This goes to staff. Was there another meeting next week that we were supposed to be at?
Next week is the Capital Improvement Project Community Forum, so that's an opportunity for public feedback to respond to the draft plan.
And would that be where we would be there as observers? And we're just trying to hear public input, is that correct?
Correct, yeah.
Where is it, sir? I didn't know about that meeting, so that'd be a good one to attend.
And this will be a function of the FAB annually moving forward. This year, staff is hosting it and putting it together for you on your behalf. But in the future, this will be led by FAB.
The community forum will be the 21st, 5 to 7 at the Rec Center.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd encourage each and every one of us to be there if we can. It's really, I think, an important part of our process to understand the community input and to integrate that into our thought processes when evaluating these budgetary measures, and bring good questions relative to those. So certainly look forward to seeing you there. I'll be there.
So Chairman, we do have the 2019 sales tax and water and sewer funds to repeat.
Okay, yeah, let's go forward with that. Sorry, I thought I had asked if there was anything further from staff on reports, and I didn't hear anything, so that's why I moved to new business.
I must not have heard that. I have a lot of papers here.
That's right.
Let me hand these out, if you don't mind taking a set and passing one. And with these, there are actually 3 documents. You'll need one of each document to be able to follow along.
Are these similar to last week, or?
These are, you saw 2023 last week. What we're looking at this week, I'm really going to focus on 2024, what we'll be requesting. We have the whole 5-year plan available so that you can see it in context. But it would not be the intent to really talk through the entire 5-year plan unless there were specific items that were there. All right,
So we should have 3 sheets.
there's 3 sheets. There should be one that says 2019 projects funded by half-cent sales tax, water projects, and sewer projects.
Tom, behind you, can you open up the one for Devin?
Like to know.
Sorry, we won't need to stay out.
All right, so we'll start with the 2019 projects. 2019 sales tax is a half-cent sales tax that is dedicated to streets, construction and maintenance, and includes work within the right of way of the streets. So last week, we looked at 2023. This week, I'd like to look closely at the projects scheduled for 2024. And as you see, there's a whole 5-year plan. Just for context, I've opened questions on any of the items, but was really going to focus on 24 because otherwise it becomes just a little mind-numbing to go through all of them at once. The first project is County Road. We've got a typo there. It's County Road 250 at 251, an intersection. This is a project that the county road is intended to be annexed into the city when it is brought up to city standards. The city and the county have agreed to a 50-50 split on the construction cost and design cost to make that happen. It is anticipated to be a $6.6 million job. It will be divided over 2023 and 2023 and 2024 construction season, with the county contributing up to $3.5 million. Second project is Dursngo Mesa, Three Springs Access Road. Some of these are in negotiation with the foundation. Parks and Rec is obviously deeply involved in that, and to some degree, potentially the county. So we're including funding for design work in 2024 and construction in 2025. Reconstruction is a process of removing the entire road surface down to the subbase. We have several projects scheduled for 2023. Red Mountain Road, Junction Street, First Street, and North College Redesign and Reconstruct is a project that is realigning, creating a road diet, removing the speed bumps that are currently in place, and encouraging better transit facilities, availability, replacing the pavement. There is a utility project that you'll see later associated with that replaces the water line in the same area. So the utilities will happen first, followed by redesign and reconstruction of the roadway. Also in 2024, we'll be reconstructing 3rd Avenue. It's simply past its natural life, and it's the repairs come out as soon as we put them in. It's due for complete reconstruction in 2024. Also in 2024, we'll complete the Escalante Road to River Road. This is when it says Trip 2030. Trip 2030 is a transportation study that indicates our overall regional, sub-regional, Durango region traffic plan in the year 2030. It is at the end of its natural life, the 2030 plan. We've built almost everything on there, where the engineering division is doing a Trip 2045 study this year that will give us a much more updated look at what we need going forward. But this is one of the few remaining items on the Trip 2030 to add complete that Escalante Drive to River Road.
I'm not gonna take a tangent by any means, but I was thinking the other day, I wonder if Trip 2030 is coming true the way they predicted it. Because I remember Trip 2030, like at about 2006 or so. That's why they call it the bridge to nowhere out there. You know, that's why that was built. Because there were going to be 70,000 ADTs at the bottom of Farmington Hill. in 2030. And anyway, please keep going, but I do wonder if Trip 2030 came true, to what percentage of it came true? Did it come 90% true? Anyways, Trip 2045, here we come.
I have one other comment, is on College Boulevard, and Anthony's only reads question because it brings up something interesting.
Right.
You're getting rid of the speed bumps?
The speed bumps are being removed.
Are you having some sort of service? Because those were the first speed bumps in town that we had these huge debates on about fire engines. And so anyway, just don't tell the neighbors there that you're taking out their speed bumps.
We have,
Anyway.
believe me, got lots of neighbor feedback, and we have left the option to reinstall them in the future. What the neighbors have learned over time is that while there are some speed slowing characteristics with speed bumps, that when people slow down, you hear them accelerate on the other side, and it's very noisy, along with rattling vehicles going over. So they're not as excited about speed bumps as they used to be.
But those have probably been here for like 25 years, so it's just interesting to watch the death of speed bumps. But those were some of the original ones, so.
I appreciate the history of the information, that was helpful.
Can I ask a couple questions?
Yes, please.
So you mentioned the, 251 construction is $6.6 million job? Is
Yes.
that correct?
Yes.
And these numbers add up to 7.2? Is there something else in there?
There are components in the 2023 land acquisition right away. I believe there's a small bit of the end of the design component is still in the 2023, because we just finished the design and went to bid.
Okay. And then the reconstruction of Third Avenue, is that West Third Avenue, East Third Avenue?
That would be Third Avenue between 14th Street and 6th.
So that's technically East Third, because there is a West
East.
Third.
Okay. East Third, yes.
Yeah, I got a question about some roads around Triangle Park. I was just wondering if any of those roads are on this list. I'm not totally familiar with the exact name of those roads. Maybe it's Russo on one side, and then on the other side, on the north side of the park, it's Park
Park Ave.
Ave.
Yeah. And Rooster doesn't come there, but I mean, it passes kind of up to the
Yeah.
west third, but.
I remember-
Those areas we're adding significant, as probably everybody knows, we had an emergency replacement of a storm drain across Rooster this year. We have significant storm drain work that has to be done on Avenida del Sol.
Right,
and-
but at the Triangle Park itself, the roads are, we got big potholes and, lots of,
Once the storm drain is in, then the pavement can go in. Because typically the storm drain goes under the road, and we don't like to cut into new pavement.
oh, right, so there's an order to the process.
Exactly.
And the storm drain is planned for sometime in the near future?
Yes, we have I believe that was our third priority on storm drains. So, yes, down toward these,
At the bottom there?
yes, I see my boards there. It's actually the first one, Forest Avenue in El Paso, Rusa and Avenida del Sol, the under drain there, and storm drain at Forest in El Paso. All those will drain that Rusa section up to Park, at the Triangle Park.
Right.
It's not anything to the north of Triangle Park. Is that what you're inquiring about?
Well, there's a road on the north side of Triangle Park.
And we have,
I'm not sure what that road's called, but it's pretty torn up, and I remember it being in the,
I think it's West Second,
Yeah.
West Second, and then West
To-
Third.
perhaps save a little bit of discussion. Another process that we go through with streets is what's called a pavement condition index study. There's LiDAR analysis of the road surface that basically a consultant with the right equipment drives a van around each roadway and they analyze the condition of the road surface and give it a relative, 1 to 100 number of how bad the surface is. We're 5 years into what is typically a 5-year life on that, as well as our 2030. And that is scheduled to be reanalyzed this year, so we will have a new ranking on all the city arterials and collectors. So we'll have a lot more information that's current and will allow us to make effective selections of the worst areas, as they'll be ranked based on surface condition, structural capacity, the drivability, the trip frequency. It's sort of a matrix process that we go through to identify which should be the next to receive surface treatments.
Mm-hmm.
And just to clarify, West Park Avenue is the one that basically comes diagonal from Main Avenue to Rusa. 17th is the one that goes across north, and then 2nd is the one that comes down north to south.
Yeah.
And West Park Avenue is the one that Multimodal has on our design plan for next year for doing traffic calming treatments. So typically we would, and then
We'll follow the paper.
Right.
But we won't.
Construction set for 2026 in that, right? So, those are all coordinated, I'm assuming.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
And isn't that traditionally called Fastbinder Park?
Yes.
In that respect, because there's a couple other parks that are kind of triangulate in town. So,
Better to use the
Fastbinder
actual
Park,
name.
one of the first parks donated to the city by a developer.
All right, so, after that, we get into projects that are farther out in construction, maybe suitable for our deep dive, study session, rather than tonight. So, beyond, we typically identify the specific locations of the planned projects for the current year. And then, if you'll see in bold print, annual reconstruction, the details selected each year from the PCI report. And so we use basically a placeholder number for future years and then break it out in the current year. So it's $1 million for each year going forward. This was guidance that we got from council at the budget retreat in February, as far as the breakdown for each of these grade line areas. I'll be able to share the summary numbers with you on that. Unplanned projects, these were items that came up during the budget retreat that council wanted attention on, and that are in addition to our normally planned processes within the streets division. One is Durango Mesa to signalize the intersection at Highway 3. We're working on that in conjunction with the Durango Mesa plan that Parks and Rec is working on. Don't exactly have a time frame on that one yet. Durango Mesa, the main entry road, will be one of the initial, we're working on the design. HDRs are working on the design for that. Currently our investment's $33,000 on that for next year.
Who's still in here? Anybody? Anybody still in the chat? For the record, are you still in here? Hey, for the record, I'm a board member, or was a board member on the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board, and it's dissolved now. So they're basically just going over all the projects that they have planned with the through the city that the financial advisory board's going to be looking at and watching over. So there's only so much I really want to say at that meeting, and I don't really want to expend my entire evening there, since, yeah, you're right, I did get a public comment for whatever it was worth. You know, we, as a city, we passed a tax back in 2019, I think it was, to repair streets in Durango, and it's slowly being spent on our streets to fulfill the needs and whatever priority that the boards have ranked them in. Thanks for joining, Melanie M. Thanks for joining for the record. Let's see who's in here. Wish I could have been there, but I would have been disrupting. So yeah, I just heard about what happened to Four Corner Fist in the Air. Wish I could have been there today. So at this point, don't really feel the need to sit on this meeting, sitting on this meeting anymore. I mean, they're just talking about numbers basically. I'm going back in. Oh no, it's locked. It's a locked meeting. What the hell? What the hell? Is it still buffering? Put a 1 in the chat if it's buffering. No, it's not buffering. Look at this, you guys. I just walked out of this building and it's all locked up. So this is not really a public meeting. It's a private meeting. Public officials. Look at this. I just walked out because I was kind of over this meeting, but hello.
Hi.
Hey, thank you.
Sure.
Do you work here?
Uh-uh.
Oh, okay.
No, I was just in the meeting. Can you now not get back in
Well, it's locked, and I'm concerned about why it's locked
when there's people in there?
when there's a public meeting going
Well,
on.
it's open from the inside. But
Right, so people can leave, but
But nobody can come in.
nobody can go into the meeting.
Is there a rock handy? Well, we're
Um,
not gonna get in that one now, right? Nope, that one's open.
Right? Okay. Is this one open? That one's open.
I couldn't get the push button to work.
All right, I gotta go talk to a staffer and see if they'll unlock it. Thank you.
Sure.
All right, guys, so we're still at the library. So the reason it was buffering is because I switched over to So this meeting, this financial advisory board meeting is locked. They locked it, dude. Since the building is closed, they decided to lock the door to the public meeting.
Is the library's not still open, is it?
No.
No.
Whatever, I'm another day to check out, whatever. Same.
Hey, do you control the doors here with the locks?
Yes, sir.
Hey, do you mind unlocking this door, this front doors of the library here? There's a public meeting going on here, and I'm concerned about the door being locked during a public meeting.
You got it, buddy.
Hey, thank you very much. Appreciate you.
I'm gonna go grab the key. I'm gonna sit this down.
Okay, thank
I
you,
thought they
man.
left it open.
Thank you very much. All right, guys. Just want to make sure this place is accessible to the public during this public meeting. I just left. Yeah, she was pretty cool. So, since I'm on Wi-Fi, as soon as I walk away from this building, the stream's gonna cut out. So, I don't think I can change that while I'm live. Do you think I could? Think I could change to back to regular signal while I'm live? I don't think I can.
All right, they are dogs, so.
Hey,
they're dogs, so people can come in and out.
thank you, man. I appreciate you.
No problem.
For the record, let's see. One's open.
Where there was just like this action that started from and the police went out and we went around over here. And it just happened, so, literally said 240 is fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Anyways. She was in here. Melanie M.
Oh, totally. Well, I have a lot of resources on science though, and then, yeah, I would love to do that. We could, and it's a big enough area that it would be a school, so it's probably, and it's because it's trained by
Yeah. So did any of you get to see the meeting, or did you get to see Four Corner Fist in the air visiting the City Hall today? I'll have to go watch that. Hopefully it's online. What's going on here? Melanie, yeah. For the record, yeah. I'm guessing he was live and that went down. They almost got him. I thought they did get him. Didn't you say he got cited for something? Didn't he get cited for failure to identify? Got 3 people here. Well, that's the end of the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. The Natural Lands Preservation Advisory Board is dissolved. The Multimodal Advisory Board is dissolved. Buffering, yes. Failure to ID and trespassing. Okay, let's see. No cuffs. Sorry for breaking out, Melanie. So yeah, 5 boards dissolved and replaced by 1 board. So 1 financial advisory board is going to do the work of 5 boards now. That's basically what just happened. done deal. July 31st will be, it'll be signed and sealed. Done. Yeah, I don't even know where the, so I better get off of here. I do appreciate you guys for joining. Even though I know it wasn't the most exciting meeting, but I just feel like my time is done on this board. I don't need to even be here. I have no interest in looking at the numbers of all these projects. I just don't even feel like like I have any purpose here since this board just got dissolved. So. All right, guys, I'm gonna get off of here since it's buffering. Yeah, for the record, I'll be following you, man. I've been watching your videos. But yeah, it is important to be here, Melanie. Yeah. Glad I came. Not sure when I'll see you again, but maybe in Farmington or next time I go visit Four Corner Fist in the Air. We'll see. Thanks for joining. I appreciate you all. Thanks for letting me know what's going on and throwing in some comments. Wish I could have replied to more of them while I was in there, but it's just too disruptive. But anyways, you guys have a good evening. I got a bunch of stuff to get to. It's a busy week for me here. So thanks again. Much appreciation. Press for Transparency out.